You.
Yeah.
Join us.
I know. But hello, everyone.
Hi.
The internet conked out for like a hot second. Did you do something to it?
Good old Spectrum.
Hey. All right, it's working.
Am I on your list for that link, Leah?
Yep, and I am sending it right now. Did you get it?
Let me see. Yes.
Okay, cool. Oh, I didn't send it to myself. So far, it's working.
Jim, you ready for this? You've got your t-shirt and everything.
I'm ready. Thank you.
I'm impressed.
I'm at the inn, so I'm trying to avoid like the sun glare, figuring it all out. New location every time for Zoom adds a little for it.
I like this one. You got out of the sun, or it looked really bright there.
Yeah, it was a little bit bright there.
Okay, we're live. It's working. You're on Facebook too. So it says 3 people are watching. 1 is me. And yeah, we'll see. Oh, Devin is here. Let's see. Everybody, Jim, great. Everybody's here. Except waiting for Michael though.
And it's still on the library's website, right? The event link that you had?
Yes. So
okay, cool.
Diana should be posting it on the library's website right now. I just posted on the library's Facebook in our event and the regular Facebook page. And our event is linked to Buckrail, KHOL, and Jacksonville News and Guide. So hopefully that everybody's viewers see that. And I am controlling what the viewers see. So I am going to pan back and forth between the candidates when they're speaking, and when the media is asking questions, I'm going to go back to gallery view. So I want all of you can control what you see on your Zooms. And if you keep it on gallery view, you'll be able to see Susan. Wave your hand, Susan, so they know who you are. And she is the timekeeper, so she'll show you these cards. And Devin and Jim, did you bring something red to use as your red cards? Awesome. And so does it make sense how you get to use those? If one of your opponents says something that you question and you want to refute, you get to use the red card and you get an extra minute to refute that. And you get 2 of those.
It's 2 minutes.
2 minutes
And-
for the red card.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's Michael.
If there's something you want to bring up at the end, you can use it for that too. Doesn't have to be for rebutting.
We want to provide you lots of opportunity so we can all get to know you better.
And when we start, I'll just put mine, turn my video off so you don't see me, but I'll still be here.
Oh,
Well, it doesn't make, because there's this extra person hanging out on the YouTube. It's kind of cool if somebody's camera isn't on in the Zoom, then it doesn't show on the live stream. I just learned that. So it just looks cleaner.
all right, Leah.
Hi, Michael.
Hello, how are we?
Hello.
Okay, we'll go live, and I mean we're already live on YouTube, but we'll start the forum in 10 minutes since that's what we advertised. But here's some free airtime if you want to talk to each other, talk to the people, but just know people are watching. 8 people.
No problem. I got a couple things I got to work on, but I'll be back in a second.
This would be a good time to check in with Haley and see if we got that special meeting scheduled.
We're still working on the time on Monday.
Yeah.
It's going to be in the evening. We're deciding between 5 and 6. So,
We'll get there.
yeah.
I'm just going to read my annotated copy of the Constitution.
Please,
We might fall asleep.
but we need some viewers to be reminded of it. So please read.
True.
Now I have a grand piano here, so if anybody wants some background music, I could play some light jazz or something.
Hey, Pete, I got the guitar right here, man. Let's go.
Yeah, who said that? Jimbo?
Yeah.
All right, let's see how let's fire it up.
Oh my God. I'm not a professional like you.
Yeah.
I'm a home musician.
You play Smoke on the Water?
I mean, I
Oh,
make
everyone can play
tens
smoke on.
of dollars a gig over here, Jimbo. One day you'll have a good time.
All right.
If it gets really quiet over there, I'm going to unmute myself and play some piano.
Yeah, Jim and Devin, it's nice to meet you weirdly virtually in person, but I know we've talked over the phone a bunch, but here we are separated by computer screens. So
Yes.
Nice to see you. I don't have a musical instrument with me, so I feel like I can't join in that well.
I bet you can sing a cappella.
I actually, you don't want me to. I sound like I really don't have like many. I grew up playing the fiddle though, so maybe I could
Oh, what a talented group this is.
handle that somehow if the guys will give me some music lessons to get me back into it. I do have it at home and someday.
Fiddle is like it's the hardest instrument out there, except maybe pedal steel. Fiddle is really hard. So you probably are light years ahead of everybody else.
I still want to hear Jim pick up the guitar while we're waiting. I mean, just do it, man. You have it sitting there. We can see it. Like,
Plug it in. Only if Pete gets it going, dude.
I mean, we have 7 minutes. Entertain us. Come on.
Plug it in, Jimbo.
oh,
I got a hand drum too. You better get that piano tuned up, man.
Yeah, I'll just tune the piano real quick, Jim. There you go.
We wanted somebody want to smoke on the water. What is that? It's like you notice I'm not gonna
Oh,
plug
wow.
it in. I'm not
I'm
gonna
impressed. Look at this.
That's on purpose.
Such talented people.
oh,
Oh.
We're indeed, Jim.
Nice.
This is a surefire way to get people to turn off the YouTube feed.
I mean, if I started singing, everyone could probably just go home right now. It'd be an early night.
If Leah had ever been, you've been to some of my shows probably. You see the turnout for those. You're probably begging me to stop. If I keep playing, before long, we'll have like 3 people here.
We have 5 minutes, 18 people watching.
All right.
People are coming in. Early.
Because this is the biggest crowd I've ever drawn.
So I need to give Haley a hard time real quick before we do this because she almost took today at the Home Ranch parking lot.
You almost took me out.
Oh,
Yes, we were both scooting through on through the home ranch.
We were mimicking what our parents have done for the last 20 years,
Yeah.
passing traffic through Home Ranch.
Yes.
Hope the police aren't watching and give us a ticket. So.
It's not posted anywhere that you cannot do that.
You sound just like my father.
There goes that shortcut, you guys.
Yeah, right? I didn't bring it
No
up.
local knows about that one.
Now those 18 people watching are all going to use it.
Almost sounds like Michael's wanting to put up a no cut through sign.
I just tease my dad all the time. I'm like, Dad, really? You just can't go? And then there I am today. They do it. And then of course there's Haley. I was laughing so hard and I PM'd her real quick. It's like, we must be locals. So
yeah. And if anyone watching on YouTube wants to put questions in the YouTube chat bar, feel free to do that and we'll monitor them and ask audience questions at the end. And if any of you that are on the Zoom call also have the YouTube live stream on, just know there is a 20-second delay to turn the sound off so you don't hear that. And just know there's just a delay and it's not exactly live as what we're doing. But we have 3 minutes.
good one.
And I'm sure all of you are familiar with Zoom these days, but you can turn your, you can mute yourself and remember to unmute yourself when it's your time to talk. And so there's always that slight pause to like unmute, mute. And I can sort of control it, but sometimes I can't unmute people as the host. And keep it again in gallery view so you can see Susan with her time cards. And Dee, I'll let you start it at 6.
Just waiting. Don't want to miss anybody who's planning on attending at 6, you know?
39 people.
This is Jackson after all. We have to give people a few minutes here, right?
It's true.
If I was watching, I'd probably be 15 minutes late. So it's the
Thanks.
It's a very casual atmosphere.
Yeah, most meetings you have to start by saying, okay, are we going with like normal time or Jackson time?
Right.
But we're library, we're very type A here.
Me too.
Okay.
Okay, my computer says it's 6 p.m. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Dee Buckstaff, a member of the Wyoming League of Women Voters. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the Wyoming League of Women Voters, Teton County Library, KHOL, WyoFile, Jackson Hole News and Guide, and Buckrail. We're going to begin the evening with the 2-minute introductions from Haley Morton Levinson and Michael Cooter. Haley Morton Levinson is a candidate for mayor, and Michael Cooter is running a write-in campaign for mayor. They will not be included in the actual forum tonight due to rules set forth by the League of Women Voters. The town council candidates, Pete Muldoon, Jim Rooks, and Devin Veman, will all be on the ballot for the primary and the general elections and are the candidates who will be answering questions tonight. The candidates will each have 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then our media panels will ask questions. Our media panel consists of Robin Vincent from KHOL 89.1, Billy Arnold from the Jackson Hole News and Guide, and Jacob Gore from Buckrail. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer the questions on a rotating basis, so everyone has a chance to go first. Susan Dong, League of Women Voters member, is our timekeeper tonight and will indicate when time is running out so candidates can sum up their answers. Each candidate has 2 red cards. Now they're not really red cards. There's something red. And they can use that at any time. They're worth up to 2 minutes and can be used as the candidate sees fit. If audience members are interested in proposing questions for the candidates, we will have someone monitoring the streaming sites, and any questions posted there will be considered for asking at the end of the questioning portion of our forum. We anticipate having enough time to add 2 or 3 questions. Candidates will then have 1 minute at the very end of the evening to give a summation or present closing remarks. Okay, let's start with Haley Morton Levinson.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Dee, and everyone else. I wanted to start off by thanking the League of Women Voters, Teton County Library, and local media for hosting this forum. It's always one of my favorites. Hi, I'm Haley Morton Levinson, and I'm running to be your next mayor of Jackson. It has been my privilege and honor to represent you on the town council since 2012. In my 8 years as a council member, I am proud to have implemented many of our community goals, including town zoning with a focus on incentives for workforce housing, renter protection ordinances, and early childcare needs assessment, the integrated transportation plan, and have approved and funded new affordable housing units in Jackson. Our town thrives from the working families that call this place home. Community members like you and me who are piecing together their dreams of working, playing, and growing in Jackson. I know the sacrifices and struggles facing our town's families because I live them. We are all carving out our life here and will continue to as we are established community members. I learned the value of hard work and community while growing up here and hold those values true today. To me, working for Jackson means establishing a Jackson where all residents feel safe and protected from discrimination. Providing equal opportunity is essential to a healthy community. It is critical to have diverse voices at the table and making decisions for our future. It is the people who make Jackson home. The current pandemic has shed a light on how connected we are, how much we lift each other up and take care of our neighbors. I am proud of how we show up as a community and work together for the good of everyone. The road to recovery will not be fast or easy, but it will come, and I will be here for Jackson, listening to you and making sure we all are represented in building Jackson's future. I have the experience, commitment, and heart to lead our town. Thank you for your support, Jackson, then, now, and always. Vote Haley for mayor in 2020. Thank you.
Thanks, Haley. And now it's Michael Cooter's turn.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Michael Cooter, writing candidate for mayor. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and sponsors for inviting me tonight. To start, I assume many voters do not understand the writing campaign and that it entitles, so I would like to first help understand that. When my opponent was uncontested, I knew this was the time to serve our community, and I stepped up as a write-in candidate for mayor. What that means to me will be not seeing my name, Michael Cooter, on the primary ballot on August 18th, but what you will see is an open write-in line. All right, so when I earn your vote, one must take the pen, hand, and write on paper and write Michael Cooter on the blank white line, blacken the oval, and to the left of my name as written. And if you are like me, you have felt very frustrated with local government. We need to have accountability for the mayor and council with respect, the taxpayers, and who are willing to work together with other partnerships to solve Jackson's most pressing problems. To speak briefly on these pressing problems, housing. The current council has turned down 46 units in Hot Island. They have squashed over 100 projects in the last 10 years. We need to, let's say, if local governments tried to build all workforce housing, it will cost more and take longer. So we need to work on that. Transportation, I will improve broken relationships with Jackson Mountain Resort, Teton Village, speak with people who work. We'll improve START and increase bicycle relationships to get traffic off roads. We'll use software to optimize START routes and help outlying communities and their shops. And safety. Let's talk about safety real quick. We are Jackson. We're not Minneapolis or anyone else. So I'm serving you, but no safety and social services responders, the youth, and will be a priority. Look forward to your vote. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both for attending and giving us that introduction. And we'll see you all at the polls. Okay,
Thank
now
you.
we'll start with the regular part of our forum. The way you all appear on my computer is how I'm going to start. So I have Pete, and then I have Devin, and then I have Jim. So Pete, you can start with your introduction.
Thank you, Dee. I won't take up a whole lot of your time. I think a lot of you are already familiar with me from having to put up with me for the last nearly 4 years now. But I will say I actually come from a working class background. I still do manual labor for a living. I've never owned a home in Teton County, and I actually do understand and prioritize the working class members of our community. I think that that's an important thing. I don't think you can simply make up those experiences if you haven't lived them. I have, and I do daily. I put an immense amount of value in competence. I'm quick to analyze a situation. I'm not afraid. I think everyone realizes at this point that I'm not afraid to make a decision. I've got pretty tough skin, but I have a big heart and I have a good sense of humor. I'm focused on getting results, and I'm extremely proud of the results that the council has achieved over my time in office. My values are justice. I value diversity. I value equity, inclusiveness, kindness, and most of all, looking out for those who are the most in need. And while I'm not running for mayor this year, I am planning to bring that same style of leadership to the council. If you think those are the qualities that will serve Jackson well for another 4 years, check my name on the ballot in the primary. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Devin.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us tonight. I'm Devin Veman, and I was raised in town, East Jackson girl here, and I'm raising my family there right now. I've spent over the last decade, which is kind of scary when I added it all up, in various leadership positions at the local, state, and national level, and some had to do in the political field as well. So that's what got my feet wet in that area. And I'm ready to bring that experience home to Jackson and serve my community. I am running for town council because I want to see our community grow in a smart, sustainable way that the next generation can have the same opportunities that I did when I was growing up here. And growth is inevitable here. I know it seems like a dirty word to a lot of people, but our community is very popular and we need to grow and house our workforce here. That's very important to me. Housing is near and dear to my heart. It's something I've worked on for a long time. And it's not just free market homes, it's deed restricted. It's transitional housing. When people get behind in Jackson, it is really hard for them to get back ahead. And it is homelessness here. We have a big population that needs some help. So I've owned my own business. I have experienced the economic ups and downs with other people, and I know what it feels like to go to bed at night and lay my head on that pillow and have people relying on me for their livelihood during a recession. So I don't take to heart lightly our business members during this pandemic. And for me, smart, sustainable growth is what I'm all about. Transparency, accountability, inclusion, and civility are also important to me. I won't just talk the talk, I'll walk the walk. Everyone will be invited to participate and their opinions be heard. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Jim, you can go.
Thanks to Dee and Leah for organizing tonight, as well as the League of Women's Voters, one of my favorite organizations. They sponsor a scholarship for Jacksonville High School graduates every single year. And the library is just a hub of our community. My name is Jim Rooks. A lot of my friends call me Jimbo. And I have a 114-year-old family history dating back to 1906, when my great grandfather Roy and his brother Frank moved out this way. He called for his childhood sweetheart soon thereafter, and Genevieve, who suddenly everyone knows Genevieve. We're so proud of that. The Genevieve block was saved in really a case study for what our community is capable of when we unify for a common cause. Genevieve and Roy had my grandmother, Jean Van Vleck, and her sister, Stella. My 13-year-old daughter's name is Stella Jean, especially when she's in trouble. And then come the Stewarts and the Rookses. My mother and father, Jim and Becky Rooks, were just extraordinary people. I know there's still a lot of people around that know of them, despite the fact they passed away some 20 years ago. Let's see, I've been back in the community since 2001. Grew up here. I'm a townie all the way. I grew up a block off the town square in the Red House. Came back and was principal at Summit High School, the alternative high school in town. Became an assistant principal at Jackson Hole High School, and then have spent the last years back in the classroom where I'm thrilled to run the We the People program. I love the Constitution. I study the Constitution daily. My red card tonight is the annotated copy, reader's copy to the United States Constitution. And currently I work for the Wonder Institute, and we're focused on building a youth community center for kids between like the middle school, up into the early 20s to support them in their lives and their families. I'm running for town council. You can find me at votejimrooks.com. And I'm so happy to be here tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, now it's time to start with the questions. I have that Robin's going to go first, and then Billy, and then Jacob, if that's okay with you guys. So Robin, why don't you start? And I guess since Pete went first with the introductions, we'll let Devin go first with the questions.
Thanks, Dee, and thank you to all the candidates this evening for participating. Let's start things off with what's on everyone's mind, and that is COVID-19. Our county health officer, Dr. Travis Riddell, has written several local health orders that are more stringent than the state's. And Jackson Town Council has strongly supported those measures and even stepped in to enact ordinances when the state health officer delayed approving Riddell's measures. Are these measures too strict, too lenient, or just right? And what will you do to ensure the health and safety of this community moving forward?
Okay, thank you, Robin. I just want to start this one by saying that I truly believe in my heart that everyone is in uncharted territory with all of this, and everybody is trying to do the best that they can. They really are doing what they believe is best for the community. And I know that there's people over here and people over there that strongly disagree about these measures, but we are a really unique community in Jackson that has a ton of tourists, as we all see as we're driving downtown. And I think that requires unique measures to keep us all safe. I struggle with the business owners. They're the ones where it was really hard for me to see them close their doors and to have to go to curbside service for things that aren't like takeout food and stuff. And we are so fortunate though, that we have such a small community that we went, oh my gosh, we're all home and we're bored. Let's go to Teton Toys and let's buy a puzzle, and we'll call and they'll bring it out to our car. So I think that our businesses here, we're really lucky. And I don't know how they could survive that again, though. I think that tightening our belts is what we need to do and to support those businesses. And I think the second part of your question was what you might have to repeat it for me, keeping the community safe going forward.
That's correct.
Yep. I'm concerned about school starting back in the fall. I don't know how if restaurants can't stay open. I'm a mom. I have a kid going into the 7th grade. It's super overcrowded. I don't know how that they are going to have schools open and stuff. So I think I have the same concerns as everybody. And as a town councilor, if I was sitting in one of those chairs right now, I'd just do my best to make the decisions that are best for the health of the community as a whole. Thanks.
Okay, Jim, your turn.
Well, listen, when you study the Constitution, you realize that the core constitutionality of all government is a balance between freedom and safety. And the pillar that all governments should ascribe to is providing the safety for the citizens of that sovereign nation. And so safety is at the nucleus of all government action. With regards to COVID, I would echo what Devin said, is that we've all been learning as this process has proceeded. My family has. We responded just like so many other families where all of a sudden we were homeschoolers. And even though I'm 25 years in education, you think it'd be easy. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for any of us. I have to err on the side of better safe than sorry. I think that the town council they acted boldly, and I know there's been tremendous controversy about that, but I think when you're responsible for the health, safety, and well-being of other people, whether it's my own children or my friends and family, and so I just had to basically consent to some of their actions. The one thing I would take exception to is just the manner in which so much of this is communicated. What I hear from so many locals and citizens is they found out when the action was made. And so I think that it's difficult. It's so hard to reach out and try to communicate effectively to the totality of Teton County. But I think we could have had a little bit better advanced communication and prior communication with some of the key stakeholders and nonprofits, business owners, so on and so forth. But like I say, I stand with the actions of the council with regards to being better safe than sorry. I think that it's easy to have opinions about these things, but when it's your call, I would never want to be acting in a manner that would jeopardize the health and safety and well-being, especially when we didn't know the full truth, and we still don't know everything related to that. With regards to going back to school, I support Teton County School District in their Plan A, adaptive learning plan, to get kids back to school. If school is canceled or modified or hybridized, I think we need to look at our youngest children first. as far as being able to maintain the routine of school, as well as daycare ramifications if school's canceled, and then tearing up the middle and high school. I love the second part of the question, which is advanced,
Jim, I gotta cut you off.
Okay.
It's Pete's turn.
That's all right. Jim was doing great. It is true, as Jim said, that the communication is difficult at times. I know the council had numerous emergency meetings here. There were sometimes they had 8 hours notice where our town attorney was literally drafting ordinances in the meeting. It was difficult. I think the council clearly led the state on this. We led the county on this, and I'm proud for having gotten the council together on this very, very early. And as I said earlier in my introduction, I'm good at analyzing situations quickly, and I'm good at making quick decisions when they're needed. And this was a case where it was absolutely needed. What we've done from the beginning here, and the other part that's important, is we've relied on the experts. We know that we are not medical doctors on the town council. I'm not one either. I have complete faith in our county public health officer. And the worst thing that we could have done throughout this would have been to try to make public health decisions as an elected body of part-time elected officials. We have supported the public health department and our public health officer throughout this entire crisis. The only times that we have stepped in are when his judgment on what needed to be done and the public health orders that needed to be issued were stymied at the state level, and he was not able to get those through. And at that time, we did pass emergency ordinances, and the state very quickly thereafter signed those ordinances. And I think that was the only way that we've gotten it done. And to the second part of the question as to how to keep the community safe, I intend to continue over the next 5 months that I'm in office and 4 years if needed, and I sure hope it doesn't take this long, to follow the advice of our public health officials. They understand what's important in this community. They are weighing and balancing the costs of closing business, the mental health, the schools. We are supporting them all the way, and I think that that's the best thing we can do. We'll continue doing that.
Go ahead. Jim held up his red card.
Yeah, thank you. That didn't take long, did it? Yeah. Limiting any member of my family to a 2-minute statement is almost unheard of. Anyone who knows us knows that. So forgive me, but I think it's a quintessential question because we're talking about the chief aim of all government. First of all, I wear masks. I've always supported masks, but I also have friends that don't wear masks. I also know that an ordinance, so many times government is in a position to lead and establish a vision for our community. I'm not aware of anybody who was cited or received tickets or anything like that with regards to this. So I think sometimes when we look at it and we think, oh, they're banning this or they're banning that, it's more of establishing a vision and a precedent for our community versus some type of criminal actions or whatnot. But COVID is not the only safety concern in our community. 25 years working in schools, all of it at the high school level. We need to talk about domestic abuse and assault in our community. We need to look at sexual assault in our community. I love the Community Safety Network and their dedicated staff. And I'm always a person who's thinking about not just what's on the headlines of the day, but the secondary, tertiary issues that impact our community. And so I've seen a lot of my own students and families be the victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in our community. I have some incredible young students that are writing in local papers about these pressing and alarming issues. And so I just want to say, when we talk about safety, certainly COVID is at the top of the list right now. But we can't use that to draw all the attention there and not look at other critical safety issues like sexual assault and domestic abuse. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is coming from Billy, and Jim will go first.
My name is Billy Arnold. I'm a reporter at the News and Guide here in town. And my question has to do with the comprehensive plan, which, as many people will know, is a sort of vision document for the community that has guided decision-making around land use planning, transportation, and housing, and other issues in that vein. And so for the past few months, the town council and the county commission have been working on finalizing language and an update to the 2012 Jackson Teton Comprehensive Plan. In the course of those conversations, some electeds have talked about shaking up the town and county's joint planning arrangement, which sees the town and county collaborate on a number of planning issues. Joint planning, as it stands now, was more or less formalized with the passage of the 2012 Comprehensive Plan. And though no changes to the overall process have been made, some have wondered whether the conversations about joint planning have signaled a lack of support for a joint comprehensive plan. That's a long setup, but my question is, do you support joint planning and the joint comprehensive plan? And please explain your answer.
Yeah, so, being born and growing up here, there's never been a time that I'm aware of that we weren't either writing, revisioning, or debating comprehensive plans. And so they're like vision statements, they're mission statements. And we all need to look to the horizon. I support those type of endeavors, but I'm a little bit more of a concrete, goals-oriented type person. And with specific regards, and like you say, they're intended to guide conversations, not necessarily mandate each and every unique circumstance. I absolutely support joint planning, absolutely. Without that, it's not as though the town and county have to do everything together. But without that joint planning, what we do is further disenfranchise people on both in the town and the county. I cannot tell you the number of people that I've given t-shirts away to over the last couple of weeks and whatnot say, I really support your candidacy, but I can't vote for you, right? Because I live in the county. And so we spoke to this a couple nights ago, realizing that while it would take a Wyoming constitutional amendment to likely fix that voting and disenfranchisement, the best thing we can do is make sure that our town and county are working together as necessary, developing those strong partnerships and relationships to support the comprehensive plan for the entire valley. Thanks.
Pete, you're next.
Okay, great. I absolutely concur with Jim. Joint planning is extremely important. I absolutely support it. And it's a kind of end of story there, but I would go on to say it's difficult. It's difficult because we often, you'll find there will be times where the Board of County Commissioners and the Town Council do not agree on a path forward. And you've got to work through that. And if you can't agree, then you leave things the way they are until you move on and can come to an agreement somewhere on down the road. These are big picture items, as Jim said. This is a vision statement for our community. And we don't and we shouldn't make rash, hasty decisions because we feel that an opportunity came before us that we may not even fully understand, and so therefore we're going to change, the entire direction of the community has been going for quite some time. I think these things do need to take time. I know that this is probably particularly in reference to Northern South Park, and we really don't know a whole lot about what's being proposed there. We've got a rezoning application in front of the Board of County Commissioners. The Town Council has not seen it. And we still are hearing from a lot of people that, there's going to be a whole lot of housing built over there for our workforce, and therefore we should just change the comp plan and allow it to get built. We don't know what that is, and we've got to be really careful about that. We could end up with turning a lot of green space or greenfield into $1 million+ homes that are essentially not affordable to anyone in our workforce. And we've got to avoid that. Let's not make rash decisions here. We can work these things out. They can take time, but good decisions often do take time. And oftentimes you have the luxury of time, unlike some of the decisions we made in COVID. We should take advantage of that and continue with joint planning. It's worked for us for a long time.
Okay, thank you. Devin, go ahead.
Thank you. I absolutely support joint planning as well. We're too small of a community not to all work together on everything. The comp plan is our guide, and I feel like certain developments aren't always going to fit into there. One of the biggest questions I have received is, you're talking about housing. Everybody talks about housing. Every political candidate, all of our electeds, they talk about it. Nothing's happening. What's going to happen? How are you going to get it done? And I agree that good decisions take time, but we're also running out of time, and we're running out of these large tracts of land that private owners have and are willing to work with the town and county to get these developments through. I firmly believe that the government and the private sector should work together to find a solution. We need to house our workers here. Obviously, when I talk about the comp plan and working together, my heart is in the housing, like that's where it's at. So absolutely, we all need to work together on every issue. It would be silly for us not to. Thanks.
All right, go ahead, Pete.
What is that? Is that a Kong?
The dog is getting really excited. I hate to bring this up, but I feel like I do need to set the record straight here because Devin has spoken a lot about her support for housing. I would ask what she's actually done to support housing. And one thing that I know that we all know that she's done, or most of us probably, is to work behind the scenes with a legislator from the other side of the state to undermine our housing mitigation program, which requires developers to provide housing for some portion of the jobs they create. This program was created and supported by our community, and its very existence is threatening to the work due to the work that Devin and a lot of the realtors around the state have done to whip up opposition to it. If the community had opposed it, they could have petitioned a referendum to repeal that program, but they did not. So I think if Devin believes we should not require developers to help provide housing for their employees, she should make that case directly to the voters of our community and not to elected officials from the other side of the state. Another way we create housing is by using sales tax revenue paid for primarily by visitors to fund housing. Yesterday at the Rotary Forum, Devin said she wasn't sure how she felt about that, which is going to be absolutely necessary if we're going to create housing for our community rather than a collection of second homes. I wholeheartedly support the seventh penny. As a realtor, she's also opposed to the real estate transfer tax bill. One of our local state reps has sponsored a bill that would impose a small fee on the sale of the most expensive homes, often second homes in our community, which could allow us to fund the construction of community housing. This bill might slow down the huge increases in housing prices, and that's not good for the bottom lines of realtors perhaps, but it's good for our community. Without funding or mitigation, what's left? There's the free market, where line cooks, nurses, and childcare workers are told to go buy $1 million homes. It might seem like magical thinking because it is magical thinking, but to paraphrase up in Sinclair, it's very difficult to get a person to understand something when their day job depends on them not understanding it. Every candidate will say they support housing. You can't get elected if you don't say it, but actions speak louder than words here. We, this council and myself, have worked overtime to create housing, and we have been successful at doing it, and we have created a mitigation program to enable us to do it more. Let's keep that intact.
Go ahead, Devin.
I wasn't sure if I was going to use this thing tonight, but I absolutely am right now because I just want everyone to know that, and the other candidates, that I can speak for myself on these issues and I don't need somebody else speaking for me on them. I have a lot to fit into 2 minutes. To insinuate that I'm working behind the scenes with a legislator just because she's my friend is a record that I've set straight numerous times. And I have openly expressed that I don't think mitigation rates should go away. I think they need to go down though. Bottom lines for realtors, oh my gosh, I do so much work for our community outside of here to keep homeownership affordable that is on my own dime as a volunteer, that I will never get behind anything that makes homeownership less affordable, like a transfer tax. I'm not going to do it because the last bill that Andy Schwartz ran, it affected people in Melody Ranch. Those are local people. I'm not going to support that. I've had this conversation with him and I'm not going to go there. Anything that makes homeownership less affordable is not okay. I do have certain feelings about things like ARUs and how we can incentivize second homeowners to rent them out to workforce and stuff like that. But I find it really interesting that I have all these opinions that people haven't heard from me yet on, but yet other candidates are, speaking for me on. So I invite anyone that wants to talk to me about this, because time is super limited, to call my cell phone, to go to my website, to anything, and I will be very open with you. Transparency is what I'm all about, and I'm not just going to give lip service to this. I'm going to get it done. So thanks.
Thank you. Let's see, Jacob, you're next up for asking a question, and Pete, you go first this time.
Hey everyone, Jacob Gore with Buck Rail here. Just want to say thank you real quick to Teton County Library and League of Women's Voters for helping to organize this. And thank you candidates for taking some time out of your evening to be here tonight. Really appreciate that. Now, kind of going along with the housing topic that we're on right now, some other towns have been cracking down on short-term rentals like Airbnbs. This could free up housing for local workforce, and it could mean more revenue for the town because more visitors will stay in hotels where lodging tax is collected. How should Jackson handle its short-term rentals?
Thanks, Jacob. Well, we don't allow them in a large portion of the town, and we do actually enforce them. And we have a gentleman down at Town Hall who is scrolling through the VRBO rentals and the Airbnb rentals and looking for those. And we have been successful at enforcing them to a degree. We've also had some setbacks in which we've found somebody advertising a short-term rental, and I believe a court ruled that they had a First Amendment right to advertise it. And you actually had to go through with the transaction in order for it to be for you to get a citation. It's a difficult thing to police. There are a lot of homes in the town, and there are a lot of people who are, have the potential to do it in other ways besides Airbnb and VRBO and so forth. But we're doing what we can. There's a lodging overlay where you can have short-term rentals, and there are parts of the town where you cannot. And short of that, and parking police cars outside of people's houses to see if there are folks coming in and out that no one recognizes, it's very difficult. I think we're largely being successful at it. I think more of a problem than the short-term rentals where, sometimes you've got a person who's struggling to pay their mortgage on their condo or something. And I understand that they shouldn't be short-term renting, is the proliferation of second homes. And if you drive around Jackson right now, you're seeing homes that serve the workforce for many years that are being scraped, and they're being turned into, there's one across the street from me that's listed right now for $4 million. And that was a 1,000 square foot bungalow that was built 50 or 60 years ago. So that's far more of an issue, I think, than short-term rentals, which aren't a long-term, we're doing the best that we can. But what we really need to do is find a way to stop losing our housing stock to folks who want to come in here and make a quick buck. And that's going to take some real work, and it's difficult to do. I absolutely support doing what needs to be done on that issue.
Okay, Devin, you're next.
Absolutely. People are taking advantage of the short-term rental stuff with VRBO. They're outside of these resort zones, and it's totally inappropriate. I don't support it at all. And we have to have accountability with each other. How many neighbors are like, oh, they're pretty good, they're pretty quiet, like, let's just not call them in. Well, you know what? If we want to keep our community having more workforce housing, you got to call them in. And the other thing is, a lot of them are following the rules in these upper end neighborhoods. You can turn over once every 30 days. So guess what? When you can have a high end rental for a week, they don't care if they rent it for more than a week. They can flip it again in 30 days. So I think that that's something that absolutely needs to be adjusted. The short-term zones are meant for what they're meant for, and those rental properties should stay in those. I don't think that people should be taking advantage of the system, and we absolutely need to enforce it, which comes back on us. We're a small community and we need to take care of ourselves. So that's all I have to say about that one. Thanks.
Okay, Jim.
Yeah, so I think it was Federalist 10 where James Madison said, what is government other than the ultimate testimony of human nature? People are going to break the rules, right? The nature of humans, especially when we're looking at the price tags associated with these overnight rentals, short-term rentals. What I can tell you, and I followed the case that Pete mentioned with regards to some local folks advertising and having their First Amendment rights to advertise a rental and yet not be able to legally do so. So listen, I think it comes down to compliance and accountability. Hope's a boat that don't float. And we can hope that people are not going to rent out nightly short-term rentals for high dollars in areas where the zoning does not support that, but it's going to happen. And so I think we need to reset and look at it. It's as old as Jackson. I can tell you that for myself is that I have a couple moral leaders of our family, and they happen to be the women of our family. My sister, Michelle Rooks, my wife, Ruth Moran. Thank goodness for them, because it's been tempting to, you could rent it for a month, but only use it for a week. And some of my family that doesn't live in town, they see those numbers, they say, hey, why aren't we doing this? And so, you can't do it, because what we do is, my mom and dad's house, which is a duplex, We have 2 long-term renters in there, and they know and we know that they pay maybe half price rent compared to others. My wife and I, we built our own house, and but we bought a condo in theory to give to our kids. I hope that can happen. But we rent it to a local family, and we're going to rent it in perpetuity. And so you got to do the right thing, but you have to have compliance and accountability on this issue. Otherwise, the numbers are too big and it's too tempting for a lot of people.
Okay, the next question comes from Robin and goes to Devin.
We know the killing of George Floyd has sparked a national reckoning about systemic racism in America. Where do you see structural racism within town institutions, and how do you plan to address it?
Thanks for that question. So just that came from somebody like watching online, just so I'm sure. Is that what from you? I couldn't hear very well. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, growing up here, we live in such a little bubble that we are so unaware of what goes on in the rest of the world. And that comes back here. I don't have any experience with it in specific organizations. But I know it happens, and it's sad that our community talks this talk of being inclusive and celebrating diversity and stuff like that. But when you really come down to it, the icky feeling is that you don't. So I have always been the person that invites everyone to the table. I'm the person that says, hey, you over there in the corner being quiet, like come and share with me and stuff. I really believe that everyone in our community should have a voice, and that means going out and finding the people that feel like they aren't even comfortable to come to a meeting, or they aren't even comfortable to speak up, because they've been mistreated before. So I really plan to do a lot of outreach like that, and just make sure that everyone knows that everyone is always welcome to call me, to text me, to email me, to share their thoughts with me, even if I don't agree. I mean, we can all be civil with each other, and everyone deserves respect. And that's how I feel about that one. And I could ramble more, but I won't.
Okay, Jim, your turn.
Let's see, I think somewhere on that state flag back there, it says the equality state. My great grandmother Genevieve was on the first all women's town council in 1920. And certainly we have a lot of issues in our community. I think classism and poverty are at the top of those lists. I've lived in this town my whole life, and I really haven't seen a lot of instances of institutional racism. I've certainly seen racist ideologies from individuals and some groups. But I think we need to pause sometimes and celebrate what we have. Is, both of my kids attend a dual language school at Munger Mountain Elementary School, the only dual language school in the state of Wyoming. 50% of my son's classmates are Hispanic Latino. A lot of times what we see is in the school system is, you'll hear this term a lot, the achievement gap. And what we understand as educators is it's not so much as an achievement, like an academic achievement gap, is it's an opportunity gap. And so I think we need to just continue moving forward. I think of Carmina Oakes and Sylvia Davia, extraordinary people who brought our town around. There was not a single Hispanic Latino student in Jackson Hole High School in 1990 when I graduated. And 50% are Hispanic Latino now at the elementary age, and up to 35% at the high school level. And we see extraordinary friendships happening. That second generation getting involved in more sports, getting involved in activities. Some of my best students are Hispanic Latino students. I'm so proud of so many of them. And so there's a lot to celebrate in our community as well. There's always work to go. With the death of John Lewis recently, I just read his last dying words, and he said he was optimistic. So I'm optimistic too. Thank you.
Okay, Pete.
Thanks. I'm not going to talk about the folks of color that I know, or about people that may or not be racist in town, because I think that's not really the question here. I think the question is, do we live in a country with systemic racism? And we do. We live in a country where systemic racism permeates every single thing that we do. We don't, a lot of us even realize it, because it is the ultimate identity politics, right? It's we're all white. We just think this is the way things are always going to be. I think the question more specifically was, how will that inform how you will govern? And for me, I recognize that. And when I make decisions on the council, it's one of the most important considerations I take into account. We deal with this. It's not that we have a particular racist policy at town hall, or that any business in town does. Of course, nobody does. But we have zoning, we have budget discussions and budget decisions, we have housing policy, we have the education that our kids get, and the histories that they are taught are permeated with the racism that has been endemic in this country for 400 years. And I think there's not one policy that's going to solve that. What's important to me is that it matters to me, and it's something that I take into consideration every time I make a decision at town council, and every time that I make a statement on anything, or just generally doing my job currently as mayor, or how I would do it if I were on the town council. This is not about trying to root out particular examples or people that say something. This is about all of us recognizing the privilege that some folks have in this country, and the systemic racism that this country has been dealing with for a very long time. And I do recognize that, and I do act on it.
Okay, thank you. Next question comes from Billy and goes to Jim.
Great. Thank you. And this will take us back to potentially the housing discussion, potentially the planning discussion. But the Gill and Lockhart families, I know we've mentioned Northern South Park, are both looking to develop housing in that area, which is just south of town, and it's in county land. The town and county, or county jurisdiction, the town and county want a neighborhood plan for the area that would presumably go beyond the plan review processes included in county land development regulations. The Gill family has said that what's in the LDRs is sufficient. A question that I have is, what should a neighborhood planning process look like, and what role can and should the government play in planning Northern South Park?
Thank you. So the first things first is that the Porters and the Gills and the Lockharts should be applauded for attempting to create housing for Teton County. As the mayor stated, there's a lot of details that need to be reviewed thoroughly, but I just communicated with Nikki Gill the other day and said, we're lucky to have people, large landowners in this community still, that are interested in doing the right thing. And I genuinely believe that they're going to do the right thing. The numbers in Jackson are astronomical. And so, yes, people are going to make money, and free market homes are going to be sold for crazy prices. But what I've communicated with both families clearly, they've committed that they have a goal to have 65% affordable deed restricted housing in there. And so, like I said, trust and verify for sure. But when you have a large landowner like that who comes to the table, specifically in Northern South Park. So when we're looking, this is the high school road. This is where a lot of transportation and amenities are. If we were going to move that direction as a town and county, those are the locations with regards to transportation ramifications, access to schools, grocery stores, so on and so forth. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. I always ask people, what would you do if you owned it? And I hear a lot of people growing up here say, this is what should be done. So what would you do if you owned it? And that's a much different question and answer, I think, sometimes. And so I believe in private property. I believe in development rights for those who have those capacities. And I love the idea that, let's see, multiple hundreds of affordable deed restricted homes could be offered to our community via these private developers. Thank you.
Okay, Pete, your turn.
Thanks. Yeah, I believe, private property rights are important. I believe in those well. Currently, the private property rights there do not allow for those homes. So the applicant here is actually asking for an upzone. And the upzone there is worth there's been a wide range of estimates, but it could well be worth over $100 million. That the public is essentially saying, we're going to allow you to have this. And so we should be very, very careful about what we get back for, and we should negotiate this strongly. I know that we've heard this number thrown around of 65% deed restricted houses in there. My understanding, and I have not seen this, and yet being told that I'm supposed to at some point say, let's go ahead with it, is that a lot of those are going to be ARUs, and they're going to be ARU accessory residential units on single family home lots. And I can tell you, looking across the street from an ARU here, people don't live in those. A lot of times they're also eligible for folks that are guests or friends of the family, and that's fine. But to count those as deed restricted housing, we don't know if workforce housing is workforce members will ever live in there. And we don't know that they will ever even be built. I don't know that, at least. I think this is, the bigger picture is this is by the last big piece of greenfield development that we have in Teton County, that to get us to this goal of housing 65% of our workforce locally. We cannot screw this up. We cannot start allowing, adding $1 million homes there and pretending that they will not be bought by people who will work here because they'll transfer their software design company from San Francisco to Jackson, hang a shingle up, and be called workforce members of the workforce. We have people that are working right now in restaurants who are taking care of our children, who are working in the hospital, working at very difficult jobs at low scales of pay, who are not going to be buying $750,000 to $1 million homes. If we are going to make this change, we have to make sure that we get something of value out of it. And I don't think we're remotely there yet.
Okay, that was great. Devin, your turn.
Thanks. So this is absolutely what our community needs. This excites me. We have to get something that the community can get behind, though, and that makes sense and that does give value to the workforce housing. We need a public and private partnership with this. There's going to be lots of elements to it. And I absolutely agree. We can't screw it up. Like, we got to get to the finish line on this one. I don't think any of us in this forum knows what that answer is yet, but it's working through the process and getting there, because at the end of the day, we need to house our workers here. And this goes back to something I touched on earlier. I live in East Jackson. I see all these big box homes going up. It's absolutely fine. I'm behind private property rights. These ARUs are sitting vacant. And what could we do to incentivize these second homeowners? Because that's who are buying these. Locals are not moving into East Jackson very much anymore, sadly. What can we do to incentivize them to rent these ARUs out at a fair market value to these workforce housing? So if that was a component to this, I'd get behind that. And the last piece that I'll add is we have an incredible number of workers here, workforce people that have saved and have got equity in their homes now. They live in townhomes and condos, and they're ready to trade up. They are like, okay, the interest rates are at an all-time low. I could keep my payment the same, and I could move to Cottonwood, or I could move to Rafter J, and I could actually afford an $800,000 house. I know that sounds crazy, but they can keep their payment the same by trading up. And then by them trading up, it frees up some of this other entry level, I say it loosely like that, the condos and townhomes. So it's a mix of everything. And I think we absolutely have to see this one to the finish line. And we have enough community support to get there, whatever that looks like. Thanks.
Thank you. Just so you all know, we're getting close to an hour now. It's gone really fast for me. I think what we'll do is we'll have Jacob ask one more question, and Pete will be the first one to answer. And then if the media panelists could ask an audience question or two for us to sum up, that would be great. So go ahead.
All righty, thank you, Dee. All right, whether it is trying to find a parking space downtown, driving during rush hour, or an influx of pedestrians crossing the road, some people in our community say that we have traffic problems. During peak tourist season, which also coincides with construction season, when tourists nearly quadruple the population of Jackson, would you mitigate those concerns or change the situation? Why or why not?
Well, yes, if I could wave a magic wand and make the traffic go away, I absolutely would. And I've tried, but not everybody buys the magic wand I'm selling, I guess. A couple of things here. We hear a lot of talk about we need more roads. Our transportation analysts, experts have told us very clearly that there's an immense amount of latent demand, which means that as soon as you build more roads, the roads get filled up. I don't think that's the answer here. We've got to be able to incentivize people to stop driving single occupancy vehicles. We can do that by providing real and improved bicycle amenities on the public streets. We can do that by controlling our parking and saying that if you choose not to take the bus up here from Alpine or Victor or wherever you're coming from to work, that you're going to have to pay for that. We currently have, probably more than anything, we have to stop building parking spaces. We have 102,000 parking spaces. It's 102,000 parking spaces in the town of Jackson right now. We have a population of 10,000 people. That's insane. Nearly a third of the landmass in the town of Jackson is paved over. If we build more parking, people will fill those with cars. And when they fill them with cars, they're going to take them out on the roads. There's no way around it. And Devin had asked, like, what would we actually do? What's the vision? And I would, for Northern South Park, and I would say, let's build Northern South Park very densely. Let's take a small part of it. Let's preserve a bunch of the open space and the green space. And let's build units that have no parking, where there's no on-street parking. You have narrow roads, you have bike lanes. I know that sounds crazy, but we have an impending workforce housing situation that's going to get far worse. And you can't, in a country of 330 million people or so, you can't tell me there aren't a couple thousand people that would say no to moving to Jackson if they had to give up their car. That's something that we can actually work on. We have to be forward thinking on this and not get ourselves tied to the old way of everywhere we go, we have to have a parking space right out front. That will get us nowhere, and it will not solve our traffic problems.
Okay, Devin.
Thank you. I actually agree with Pete on something. Smaller homes, smaller lot sizes, fewer cars. Like I absolutely think that more people would come and live here if they had to give up a parking spot. I think a good example is, in town, we're seeing these bigger units being built. We have open space in parks that people can utilize so they can walk to them instead of having to drive their car, and really making a sense of community that everywhere you can walk. I think that this topic naturally leads back to the START bus and all of that. And their ridership is down 70% right now. But if you look at their, I think it's called the route plan, their 2025 route plan, they want to go more places and they want to do these things. How do we get more people to ride the bus? How do we incentivize people to get on the bus? How do you get me on the bus? Like, I'm going to look myself in the mirror and say, how are you going to get yourself on the bus, Devin? Like, what's going to make you ride the bus? I think we have to commend the START board for all of the work that they've done on this plan. I was totally unaware of it. It's been part of my ever ongoing homework to learn more about this position. And I absolutely have learned about the hub lane that wants to be put in out to the village. And I have to say, I'm still going to learn about it. I can't get behind it or not get behind it quite yet. But gosh, if I was sitting in my car going out to ski and I was a tourist and I see the bus going by me, getting there twice as fast, I'd probably ride the bus. So we absolutely can do a lot for these things. And I support denser housing to get us there. Thanks.
Okay, Jim, your turn.
Okay, here you go. 114 years of thoughts on traffic and busyness in Jackson Hole. I'll keep it short. So the first thing when we start looking at any type of quandary, and we first need to think, is this a government solution or a private solution or a combination of the both? And I think when we start talking about transportation, I start hearing a famous line about government, which is the unintentional negative consequences of well-intended legislation. Government can act so many times with the specific intent to accomplish a good intention. But as we all know with government, it does not always manifest in such a manner. So we have to be careful, first of all, to understand just because government does something doesn't automatically mean people will not drive. Sometimes people just pay the parking tax and drive, or they'll just park their cars across the street. all kinds of different unintentional consequences. Listen, Start Bus is one of the solutions. I said at the Chamber of Commerce and the Rotary Club meeting that I'd like to see some connectors between large population densities in Rafter J and Melody Ranch in town. I think transportation is about when and where. We do not have a universal transportation or traffic issue. Certainly Highway 22, 390, Snow King Ave through town at certain times. I think we need to build infrastructure, not necessarily equalizing the demand, because we know the demand is infinite, but whether we look at a hub lane out to the village, I drive south of town. I think that's a very appropriate 5-lane highway down there. There's been wildlife mitigation, underpasses, fencing. I think walking and biking, my front yard looks like an old bike store because my wife and I both have e-bikes. And there used to be a debate about whether e-bikes should be allowed on the pathways. Mark Barron would tell us that there was controversy about Snow King Avenue being connected back in the day. So I think that we need to look at the totality of the issues, but probably also understand we need to act, we can do things, it's housing, it's super complex. But we also have to realize that we live in one of the most desirable locations on planet Earth, and a lot of people are gonna come every single summer, and all of us locals are gonna complain about the traffic to some extent or the other. But as most of my friends who live in LA or any other metropolitan area, they mock me when I say we have serious transportation issues, and I tell them, you know, drive out to the village or try to get over the pass, you know, at 5 o'clock.
I'm gonna stop you.
Thank you.
So Devin would be the one to go first with the next question, and it will be a question from an audience member, and I'm not sure who's going to ask it. All right, go ahead, Robin.
Policing is one of the largest line items on the town's budget, and some community members have been pushing for a portion of that funding to be shifted to preventative services. Should funding be redirected from policing and into social services? And please explain.
Thank you for whoever asked this question, because I'm excited to talk about it. I think it's a super timely and important thing in our country and our community. And when we all started having more of these discussions openly, I thought I need to go learn more about this because I just don't know. So I've participated in some of the police stuff. I've reached out to Act Now JH. I think that the word defunding the police, after I've learned about it and what our local community takes that to mean, it might be too strong of a word. In other communities, absolutely, they're talking about defunding the police. But from what I understand here is they're looking to kind of reallocate some funds and say, hey, police and sheriffs, you don't need to have all this on your backs. Like, you've got a lot going on, and let us take some of that and put it where it needs to be. And so I can't speak specifically to the budget stuff. I think that their spirit and intent with this, they say the same thing. Like, we're not gonna talk about specific dollar amounts with this, but I do think that we need more preventative health services and stuff like that. This is something personal to me that I'll get a little bit off track, but many people don't know that David Veman is actually my stepfather, and my biological father committed suicide when I was 10 years old. So mental health issues are super important to me. And I feel like our community has been in a reactive mode for so long because of insecurity with long-term planning and funding, that we have to find a way to be proactive and preventative. And that starts with the police and being able to send counselors on these calls that they need them on. So I could keep going on and on about this one. So if anyone wants to call or text me, I'll talk more about this, but absolutely, we can help.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, your turn.
I want to start by saying I support local law enforcement. I met with Chief Smith, who's finishing and retiring after a 29-year career in the town of Jackson, 12 years as the chief. Matt Carr, our sheriff, is a good friend of mine. I've worked with the school resource officers, both at Summit High School and Jacksonville High School, for any number of years. And I guess I just think that what we're doing is we're taking a national tidbit and we're throwing it down on the town square and acting as though this is quintessentially our issue. What I learned from talking with the sheriff and the chief is that our local law enforcement is barely holding on as is. They're almost always understaffed. They both just experienced pretty significant budget cuts in response to COVID during funding year 2019. So my first retort to people when they say just a unilateral defund the police is to say they just got defunded. They have a hard time recruiting. They have a hard time keeping officers. And I want to speak quickly to the morale of the statement, defund the police. You know, I'm a teacher. You know, guess what I think if somebody said defund teachers? And I know there is a myriad of different ramifications beyond the simple statement. I support Jackson Hole Community Counseling Center 1,000%. Members of my family and myself have benefited from that after I was run over last summer on the Elk Refuge Road. The Community Counseling Center was incredibly supportive. And so it's not a binary issue. As a government teacher, I just take offense to the idea that everything can be boiled down into do this or do that. When we're looking at the policing and law enforcement of a high energy town in America today, it is infinitely complex and it goes well beyond a simple slogan of defund the police. I support local law enforcement. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Pete, your turn.
Sure, thanks. I recently actually received a public comment that essentially told us, me and the council, to back off the police and that we should not even talk about the police budget, or else it means we don't support the police or something. And I strongly disagree with that statement. Our police department works for the residents, not the other way around. The town council has a fiduciary responsibility to ensure that we are spending public funds in the most beneficial way. That's like the essence of what we do. It's a responsibility I know that all of us electeds take on when we agree to serve the public. And there are hard decisions there, but we've got to be prepared to make them. I know I'm prepared to make them, but I also know that without better data and good oversight of all of our departments, we can't make those decisions wisely. So the notion that we should not be able to review these budgets in detail to make sure that we are actually getting the best bang for our buck with the limited funds that we have here is crazy to me. As you may know, the council 2 nights ago directed the town manager, I asked them to do this, to prepare a review of the costs and benefits of our current level of policing. We're currently running an experiment right now on a 20% reduction in police department funding for this year during a time when we have apparently more people in town than we've ever seen before. So we're going to get some data out of that, I would imagine, as well. But this is the moment to have that discussion and not to shy away from it. And I know that, you know, talking about the police and talking about parking, which I also just talked about, are the third rails of politics. But we have an opportunity right now. Our chief, who's a great guy, who's been serving, as Jim said, for 29 years, he's retiring. So we've got a leadership change, we have budget difficulties, and we have a local and national conversation about the value of certain levels of policing and what is important. We have to have that conversation now. And we have to come to it in good faith and be willing to look at this and not just boil it down to I support or I don't support law enforcement and put everybody on some side that you're either on the side of criminals or you're on the side of law enforcement. We have to be able to have those conversations. I'm not going to shy away from them. I'm ready to have it.
Thanks. You know what? I'm not going to let you do it. I'm sorry. Everybody had one red card. We're just going to go over too much. I want to take one more audience question and then wrap it up for the evening. And let's see, Jim, you'll go first.
And will we would you like me to ask it?
Please.
Great. We just scroll up. Ooh. Sorry. I am currently missing it. Okay, here is the question. that came in from the community, and it's about funding local government. Obviously, on the ballot right now, in November, there is a 7th penny sales tax. But the question that came in from the community is, do you support bringing the lodging tax up to the full 4%?
Well, thank you. I have to first say that I've always, as a citizen, always considered this candidates forum to be the most informative. And it is, I think, once again, the same tonight. So thank you to the League and to the library and local media for making this all happen. With regards to government and taxation, I think that the answer to every governmental legal question, as all of my 25 years of students would tell you, is it depends. It depends on a myriad of different circumstances. So instead of just, first of all, I applaud the town council for giving the 7th penny sales tax vote to the citizens of Jackson. So I appreciate that move. I think that's where taxation should be voted on, is of the people, by the people, and for the people. I think that any of those revenues garnered via that 7th penny should go back to fund pre-existing programs and not always thinking about funding the next shiny thing. With regards to other taxations, forms of taxation, the housing overlay taxation, I think it depends. I think today I would say no. Sorry, but I'm a fiscal conservative, and I think that if you ask me if we should tax more, I'll probably say no. But it depends. It depends on the economic ramifications of COVID. Number one is we still don't know exactly where our sales tax is going to be coming in. And so if in fact we're in desperate times, then I think you can ratchet the level up. If times don't demand that, then I think we should maintain taxes, or even consider dropping taxes whenever and wherever possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Pete, your turn.
Great. If the 7th cent does not pass, then certainly I would support that, and I might support it anyway, to be honest. I know that there is a lot of concern about the numbers of tourists that are here currently, and in general. I would say that I don't know that our marketing is bringing them here. We're really not doing any marketing through the TTB this year at all. We're basically telling people to be careful if they do come, but we're not trying to market this place, and we're still full. And I think that that's probably going to be the case. We haven't really added hotel beds here in many years. But I think we do have an opportunity, aside from the general revenue funds that flow from that allow us to fund some of the important things in our community. I think we also, have an opportunity with the remainder of that, and as well as with the 2% we're currently charging, to look at ways to market better, to try to. We know people are going to come here. We are a crown jewel community of this country. And I think everybody knows it. And I think we should be marketing for who will come here to visit in the least impactful way, or at least negatively impactful way. We can do that. I know the TTB has been doing a great job of trying to move in that direction. And I think that in the long term will really help. But I don't see us, I think if we got rid of the lodging tax, it's really not going to affect the number of tourists that come here, which I know a lot of people get worked up about. I think what we ought to do is use that money to benefit our community, and then try to go out and market to people. Personally, if there's a national Pathways magazine, I would like us to market Jackson Hole in Pathways magazine, because I honestly think that the thing that bugs people most about tourists are all the cars on the road. So if we can just get some bike riders here and market to them, I think we'd be doing a lot better.
Okay, Devin, your turn.
Thank you. So generally speaking, I'm not one that's going to get behind more taxes in general, but this one I can get behind because it's not our community paying for it. And part goes to state, part goes to our community. I haven't yet learned what that percentage is. But it's not hurting our locals. How often do we stay in a hotel room? Maybe when we're lucky on a staycation and we get to go do the fun weekend at Teton Village. But if this can help improve our community in some way, then I support it. Thanks.
Great. Okay, now to everybody gets a minute to sum up or use as they wish.
Madam
And,
Moderator, may I jump in for a moment?
Yes.
We had an important question come in from the audience, and it also happens to be along the lines of one of the questions that the media panelists wanted to ask. It has to do with climate change. I think we would be remiss not to talk about climate change. So I wonder if I could pose this one last question from the audience.
Sure, love it. Go for it.
So this question reads, the economy and lifestyle of Teton County residents revolves around our amazing landscape, which is at risk due to climate change. This same landscape has led to an economic dependence on what some describe as industrial tourism, real estate, and construction. How will you pass policies that create an economy that regenerates our landscape and dramatically reduces our carbon footprint?
We're going to have Pete go first on this one.
Okay. Well, climate change is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. Some of you may know, I recently started, with the help of some other folks, the Jackson Hole Climate Action Collective, which is working to develop grassroots support for climate-friendly policies. More importantly, I would say I brought to the town council and we passed a resolution aiming for net zero carbon emissions by the year 2030, which really, unfortunately, is not soon enough. This is, we spend an immense amount of blood, sweat, and tears making sure that our wildlife and our natural surroundings are maintained here as we should. And yet they're threatened by catastrophic climate change. And we're really not doing much about it. Of all of the questions when we did a recent survey about how is our community doing, the one question where the community thought we were doing really well, but in fact we are lagging far behind on, was carbon emissions. And it's a big part of all of the policies. When I talk about parking, when I talk about traffic, when I talk about housing, climate change and the amount of carbon that we're emitting into the atmosphere year after year is driven by those policies. We don't currently review them. One of the reasons that I support the 7 cent of sales tax is because I've asked the council to develop a climate sustainability department, and that's going to cost some money, but we need somebody who's reviewing every single one of our policies, whether it's a zoning policy or a parking policy or the smart bus route, whatever it is. We need to we review them on the basis of a lot of things, but we do not review them on the basis of carbon emissions. We have to change that. It was going to require money. It's going to require experts, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions around density. We have made those decisions. They're very, very difficult, but they are important if we're going to leave this planet in a similar condition for our children and grandchildren.
Thanks. Devin, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So that's a really long, complex question for 2 minutes, but I think that, so I know that approximately 80% of our carbon footprint comes from transportation. So that absolutely has to be our top priority, which we've all talked about. That leads back to, more density, housing more people here that maybe don't drive a car in town, more funding for the START Bus Board. I mean, they want to increase routes. They want to have maybe transit centers and stuff. Well, this stuff costs money. We got to figure out how to pay for it and to get them the money that they need for that. I think the other part of this question was regenerating landscape and stuff like that. I think you use those words. That means we have to develop responsibly, and we can have more density, but that means we got to leave those open spaces too. And it also means things like, for me, I don't see why we need a lift off the back of Snow King to further, Leaks, is it called Leaks something, Leaks Canyon? I can't remember when I'm up there, but I don't remember street names either. You're going to learn this about me. Why do we need to disrupt the wildlife anymore? We already have all this awesome stuff going on. Like it has to be a delicate balance, and we all have to work together to get that done. So, transportation and making sure our wildlife has the areas that it needs to continue to thrive. We can't take that away from them. Thanks.
Thank you. Jim, go ahead.
So as we all know, the reason we know the name Jackson Hole, why so many of us came here, is because of this magnificent natural environment and wildlife. And I think that we made a deal with nature around here. We made a deal with the wildlife over 100 years ago, and we need to keep our end of that deal. I think we need to start replacing industrial tourism with ecotourism. I'd love to work. It all comes down to relationships, compromise, and progress. I'd love to see public transportation made available in Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Park. In particular, Grand Teton National Park, it's long overdue. We know that those buses would be full. And I think that's one thing, recognizing a mass amount of our carbon imprint is transportation. I think we need to look at incentives versus punishments. I think we need to fund the START bus, the START board, and their vision for our community to reduce transportation. I think we need to fund recycling. I think we need to also look about our decisions as individuals. It's really a time with climate change to not be reliant upon your government to fix this circumstance. I think growing your own food might quite well be the most impactful thing that a human being can do. I think we need to incentivize gardening. I think we need to support groups like Whole Food Rescue. I think we need to incentivize composting. Once again, it's an infinitely complex issue, way too much for 2 minutes. But I think it comes down to us as individuals working with the government and not expecting government to fix this monumental challenge.
Great question, Robin. Thanks. Okay, for closing statements, everybody gets a minute, and we'll go ahead and start with Devin with this one.
Thank you. Tonight was really actually fun. I was a little bit terrified of what a debate might look like on Zoom, but it was actually enjoyable for me. And I liked getting to know everyone a little bit better. For me, transparency has been the most important thing in leadership my entire career of doing it. You're never going to have to wonder what I'm up to. I'm going to post it. I'm going to share it. I'm going to want your opinions. We can all sit here and say, if we had a magic wand, this is how I would come in and I would fix this. Or maybe things aren't really broken and people are asking us these questions. Oh, 1 minute goes really fast. We got to work together as a team, guys, as a community. We got to work together as a town council with the county commissioners. And we have to have accountability for ourselves because that's where it starts. So I ask for your vote. And I really appreciate our community. I care deeply about it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, Jim.
So I'm running on a platform of unity in the community. I think we're all kind of tired of the hyper partisan, vitriolic, poisonous politics that have come to be the norm at the national level for sure, more and more at the state level. And I'm ready for our community to come together more and more. I'm a nonpartisan person running for a nonpartisan office. Everyone tells me I have to pick sides. And I tell them I'm prepared to pick sides on certain items, but not on the entirety of all issues. And so I think that most Americans are center right or center left. And we live here in the middle of the political spectrum, and yet so much of our politics is fringe extremism. And so I'm running on measures of unity, hope for the near and long-term future of Jackson Hole. I'm proud to say that I'm 5th generation. My kids are 6th. And I don't really think that means anything different than someone who just got here yesterday. Is we all love this place. We got to get together. We have to work as a team. We have to communicate, collaborate, debate, argue, and move forward for the hope of Jackson Hole. And lastly, I want to let people know that one thing that I'm—
Sorry, gotta stop. Yeah.
Okay, one thing. I want to invest in our youth. We talk about adults all the time around here.
Okay.
Don't talk enough about young
Thank
people.
you. It's Pete's turn now.
Okay, I agree. We've got with Jim that we've got hard questions and we need to debate them, and I'm passionate about them. And I think everyone who knows me knows that I'm a civil, funny, kind person. And but I do think in these debates we have to make decisions. We do need to set our stakes in the ground and let people know where we are up front. I'm passionate about this stuff. It's okay if people disagree with me, but everybody knows where I stand on things. I will come out in the middle of a campaign and talk about the police. I will talk about parking. I will talk about anything, and I've done it, and I will start this. 6 months before, 4 months, I don't know, 3 months before an election. I make these decisions. I'm passionate about them. And I'm really looking forward to another 4 years of working with council and getting things done for our community. I've done my homework. I know the issues. I'm ready to lead, to continue leading on the council and under our next mayor. I'm really looking forward to that. I asked for your vote, and it's been a pleasure meeting all of you and chatting with you here on Zoom this afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful evening and rest of your week. Yes.
Well, thank you all. That was fabulous. It went really well for me, and I hope you all had a great time. And thank you to everyone who tuned in on YouTube. And don't forget that we have another forum tomorrow night, same time, same place, with different people. So join us. All right. Well, some same people. All right. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.